This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Bean Gene. Bean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Wright.
And a good Monday evening to you all, everybody. Look who's decided to join the Monday night show. It's so nice that the band is back together. And yes, that's correct, Sylvia.
You're welcome.
That's why we're on at 5:30, because we want to be off in plenty of time for everybody to watch nightly news tonight with Lester Holt, which was a big thing on the beach last night.
He's such a nice, I don't know him personally, but he seems like a really, really nice guy.
Yeah. And so it's always great to get exposure on Fort Myers Beach, and I'll be broadcasting live tonight from, I think he's on Baymar. I heard a lot of scuttlebutt or commotion down on Baymar. And then tomorrow night he'll be in Miami. So he comes to Florida to hopefully spread the spotlight on Fort Myers Beach and keep that word out there about what's going on. And I wanted to share something with you, dear. We got something in the mail today, and this comes to us from Corrine from Fairfield, Connecticut. Dear Ed and Kim, I want to thank you 1,000-fold for all you have done for the people of Fort Myers Beach. In those early days after the storm, I was obsessed with getting all the information I could online through neighbors, pictures, Wink News, and the news press. It wasn't until I found Beach Talk Radio that I felt secure with up-to-date information. The first time I was able to put my eyes on my condo community was when I followed your South End bike around. I have a condo at the Palms on Bay Beach Lane. Even though I heard about our damages, it was when you put my building on camera that I could feel some tension subside. I watch your shows and rides every week and check in on your Facebook page every day. Thank you for your tireless dedication to Fort Myers Beach and looking out for all of our best interests. And she goes on a little bit longer, but that's plenty. And she said a $100 donation to the show. So that was very nice. Yes.
When you're reading stuff.
I don't start on me. I wasn't nervous right there. I wasn't nervous at all.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird. You don't get nervous in front of
I wasn't nervous when I was reading that. I was just putting a little emphasis on it. Well, somebody came up to me during the show, and we'll sorry, Dan, we don't mean to filibuster here, but we'll have you on in a second. It's not often that I get her to sit next to me during the Monday night show, but somebody said that she listens to the show and she hears me do this snort, and it cracks her up. I said, oh, no. Now, every time I do that or snorkel or snort or something like that, I'm going to be aware that somebody is actually keeping track of it. Maybe they'll make a drinking game out of it soon. I snort. The show today is sponsored in part by Dorston Claims. Is your house gone and your insurance company is just giving you the screw job? You should call Dorston Claims at 239-849-2949 because they're taking care of people that the insurance company is not taking care of. And even if you got a check, you still may be owed more money. And Dorston Claims, they do not get paid until after they get you a check. There's a percentage that they take on top of that. So there's no reason not to call them at 239-849-2949. And of course, Alex King at Current Coastal Realty. Everybody knows Alex. He's the #1 agent in sales volume for 6 straight years on Fort Myers Beach. The King family has been raised on the island since 1958. And the King Family Foundation donated over $225,000 in the past 2 years to Fort Myers Beach charities, and they'll continue to do so in the future. Give Alex King a call. I'm afraid to look at 239-849-3663. Alex King is the king.
Apparently, you do it on your early morning walking tour.
That must be when it was. So it was hilarious too. There's the mayor right there. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Love to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now is that a fake background, or are you in your house?
Well, I'm sitting in the house, yes, but I'm not in the house. So you probably hear some echo in the back. It's we're getting closer.
Yeah.
Good.
And the lighting
It
is
looks
much
good.
better.
Yeah, you were giving me a hard time about the lighting. I figured I better. So this weekend I spent getting the internet up and running in here, so at least I could sit inside and believe it or not, it's much cooler in here than it is inside that camper. So
Really?
yeah, it's
Well-
fat guy friendly weather. It's nice
Yeah.
in here.
Just you have lighting issues and we have audio issues from our bike
Yeah.
ride and stuff.
No
We've
more-
got to get some
hopefully
microphones.
No more lighting issues.
So before we get started on the questions, what's it like down there? Did you talk to Lester Holt? Did he interview you, or kind of give us the behind the scenes from what you've experienced the last 2 days?
Yeah, I was down there yesterday. Obviously, the kids did a great job with the two songs they sang. I was not able to make the first concert they did, so it was exciting to get down there and get to see them sing. And it was very moving songs that they sang. I don't think there was a dry eye in the crowd, so it was nice to see that. I got a chance to spend a few minutes with Lester briefly, just introduce myself, obviously thank him for coming down and keeping the word out. And I thought it was very important that he was there to interview the kids and people are tired of seeing me. The kids, they have amazing stories. It's those kids that have been through more than anybody, really. They lost their houses, they've lost everything, including their school, and yet they're up there singing. So I'm glad that the story yesterday was about all of the kids and the parents and none of us that answer all the same questions all the time.
I guess we'll see it at 6:30 when it comes on. I heard he was on Baymar, and that's where they're doing the broadcast from. And then
it's
also
been pretty secret. I've heard a couple different places that they've said they're going to be. Over the last week, obviously, we've done a lot of interviews with a lot of different stations from all across the country, and it's a lot about the upcoming hurricane season, how we're preparing, what have we learned, what can we tell people, that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure. They really didn't tell me or us or Jenny where they were going to be. I've heard they were going to be over the bridge at a marina. I've heard now.
Right.
So honestly, I have no idea where they're at, but I know that there's people out there actively looking to find the site so they can be part of it. So it's my wife will tell you I watch Lester every night. Usually it's whenever I get home, it's recorded on the TV, so I'll watch it. It's always, let's see what Lester has to say today. So it's exciting that he's down here. It was nice to meet him. He's a very nice guy.
And
He seems like a nice guy. That's what I was going to ask you. He just seems like a genuine good guy.
Like every TV personality you meet or every actor or anything that you meet, you think that they're so much bigger, on TV. That's why heavy-set people are not on TV, because we would look really big. But no, he's a tall guy, but he's very thin.
Saturday, we were able to pass off to, I don't know, about 50, 60 fishing poles to take to Jeff over at Bay Oaks, and they're going to be doing the summer camp at the Mountain House this year, so they'll be able to go fishing. And that was a great job by everybody that watches the show. It took 2 days for them to fill up the bin with fishing poles, and so that's great again for the kids down there.
Yeah, I have not turned them over to him yet. They're still in the trailer out in my front yard, locked in the trailer. So I'm going to hopefully get those down to Jeff. And on that note, congratulations goes out to Jeff. He is the interim title has been removed from his title. He is now the director of the Cultural Parks and Recreation. So congratulations to Jeff. It's official. That was made last week by Andy. So congratulations to him. I think he's a good person for the job. Until recently,
he's another good guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Until recently, I didn't know he was from Minnesota also. And, you look at him, he looks like he's 12 years old, but he's actually much older than that. I was quite shocked at how old he was. But I thought, wow.
Well, how old is he now that you put it out there?
Like 30?
No, he's in his mid-40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So when I saw interim in front of his title, I was like, interim? I mean, come on already. Get that out of there. He needs to be running that show. He's doing such a great job.
He is. He I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, Sean Parks was in that position before Allison. And Sean and he have a lot of similarities. They're very energetic young guys who are, go-getters, think outside the box kind of guys. So I was pleased to see that he got the job, and I look forward to seeing what he can do. He's out there every day. He was at the Easter egg hunt at Diamond Head, running his tail off with some of his staff. So congratulations to Jeff, and there's nothing but up for Bay Oaks with him at the lead. So congratulations.
Yeah, I was on to something a little bit different. You mentioned Allison, I think she's working for the county now, but I was reading some of the Tourist Development Council statistics today, and it's going to be in the newsletter tomorrow. The numbers compared to the first quarter last year, brutal. I mean, it's like 50% down all across Lee County, and that means less bed tax money. And I wish you could see a breakdown in those numbers community to community, because it'd be interesting to know how much of that percentage is Fort Myers Beach, because really there's 3 resorts open, and that's it.
Yeah, it does break it down into, inland and coastal, but it's kind of weird. The maps, I've just found this out at the last TDC meeting. It's kind of what is considered coastal isn't what you would expect it to be. It includes some Cape Coral. So the maps are a little difficult to read, and it doesn't get specifically into the area, but you're right. It's like 50% roughly, give or take, across the board that the numbers are down. But it's not, like you said, it's not just the beach area. It's all of Lee County is down. Some areas are up a little bit more, but it's better than what was expected. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not really unexpected that it was going to be down. That's for sure.
Yeah, and Allison is with the TDC now. She works for them. I can't remember her exact title, but I see her at every month's meeting. So she's doing well and says hello to everyone. So it's nice to see her at least once a month. So that she's doing good.
And some of these baby steps to opening, the Pink Shell is opening their pool this weekend. I mean, it seems like such a little thing, but it really isn't a little thing when you saw the damage that was done to that Octopool, and they worked hard to get it open. So that's going to open this weekend for guests at the Pink Shell. You're
stealing my thunder. I was going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did. One thing I noticed until I saw that picture when they posted it on their Facebook page, I never noticed there was an octopus on that pool. And I've been there, I don't know how many times.
Right.
And I never noticed that the octopus on that pool. You walk around, you don't pay that close attention, but it's pretty cool to see. And I'm glad that they're open, or they're opening soon. So shout out to Chester. If you ever get down there and you see Chester, he's always the one that's kind of running the security. He's their head of security down there. Super great guy. He was on the news a couple months ago. Gives me a hard time every time I'm down there. He's the official mayor of Fort Myers Beach, and I'm not. So if you ever get a chance to go down and talk with him, Ed, go down and talk. He's a great guy. He and his wife actually have a really good story about he's retired police officer, and he's got some good stories. He'll talk your ear off. Chester's a great guy.
Yeah, when I was doing one of my bike go-arounds on Sunday, when I started down at Bowditch, it had to be him. There was him and another guy that were out, because the Pink Shell is right there. And they're like, hey, how you doing? Real friendly. We're great. We're rebuilding back. And just a real nice, it does sound like him. Yeah. Real nice guy.
He could tell you everything about, he knew everybody before the storm, who was, if they were camping out in Bowditch, he'd tell you who they were, what they looked like. He's obviously he's got a good relationship with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, because that's what he did. But guy's always smiling. He's always got good stories, and he's a good guy to go talk to. So
one other quick snippet for tomorrow's newsletter. Well, I don't know if it's going to be in the newsletter, but I was able to finally talk to some folks at the Beta Beach condo where that fire was. And they had some good news. I mean, it's never good news when you have a fire, but it wasn't as bad as the flames looked, and they're only going to be delayed opening by 2 months, which is nice. They said the concrete floors on the top levels help prevent the water from damaging every single floor. So they're hoping still to be open by the end of the year, which is really great news after standing next to that building and watching that fire go from one corner to the next up on the roof.
Yeah, seeing that smoke, I was off island coming back on, and I could see it was coming from that direction. And with the amount of black smoke, it was hard to tell when you're off island because of the way the road curves, and you never know where it's at. And trying to follow along with where it's at. Some people were speculating this place and that place, but there was some heavy smoke. I thought it would have been much worse than what you just described.
Yeah. So after the show last week, or maybe it was during the show last week, I don't remember. The rest of the week was just crazy with the proposal from the Beach Baptist property. And
before we get to that, I want to touch on a couple of good, since you started off with some good news with the Beta Beach condos. We had a meeting with the 7-Eleven corporate office.
No way.
Their lobbyist is also our lobbyist, Ron Book. So Ron Book and Rana and those are his team came down with 7-Eleven. And we had a good conversation with them. I let them know that I was not very happy with the lack of communication, that they were unaware that we were not being communicated with. But I do have some good news. I confirmed with them today that They are moving forward with submitting their plans before the end of the month for the very south 7-Eleven where the gas station is across from Santini. That one fared the best. They had to tear down 3 of their 5. The 2 on the south end are open, so they're working on trying to get those open, but they are submitting plans by the end of the month for the one on the south end, and they tell me that should go very quickly. They are rebuilding all the other stores. The one obviously across from Junkanoo is going to be their flagship store. The one across from the Lani Kai, and then the one up by Times Square. Those 3, they're going to try to run concurrently to get those plans in by the end of June to rebuild those. So we're going to have all the 7-Elevens back. They are continuing to work with the ones off Island as well, the one down off of Bonita Beach Road, and then up by Pine Ridge Road to get those open as well. But we have a line of communication with them now. I send them an email. They get back to me within a couple hours. So it's nice to be able to have that and give some positive information about getting gas. And they have taken care of the tanks already. So that part of it's been done. But they think the one on the Santini, across from Santini, will be open fairly quickly once they were able to get their permits submitted. So that's good news. Also, Don't forget that this Thursday at 8 a.m. Publix will also be reopening. So that's exciting. So we're starting to get some of the things that Foley's saying hello.
What was that?
It sounded like Foley ate the cat.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It must be a bird in the backyard or something. He's going crazy. But yeah, Publix will be open at 8 o'clock on Thursday morning. So that's great news. Also, wanted to give congratulations to Councilor King. He was nominated for secretary and got the position for the Southwest Florida League of Cities. He and I and the town manager attended that meeting this last week, and so congratulations to him. He's going to represent our island very well, I think. By far the tallest man in the room. So it was nice to see that happen. So congratulations to him. Now
Shelley said, what about the one near Flamingo Street? So which one is she talking about? Is that
the one near
Santini? The one on the
Santini.
south end, yeah. Those are the 2 that they did not take down that they feel that they can build back. They had to go out, like everyone else, they had to go out and get a private appraisal value. They have an idea of what it will cost to rebuild those. And that is their first choice, is to try to save those buildings and rebuild them. So I don't know on the Flamingo one if they've received their private appraisal on that yet, but they did go out and get one for the one down by Santini by Linnell Road.
Yeah, because that one down by Santini, on the bike ride on Sunday, I was like, the tanks actually look intact. The gas tanks look intact, and I was like, boy, it sure would be nice to get some gas down here. That is good news to hear.
And they did drop off. I think they're sitting at the reception desk inside the trailer where myself and Andy sit. They dropped off about this thick pamphlets of free hot dogs. So if my good friend Bruiser is listening, he and Trey are big time hot dog fans. They'll have to travel a little bit to go get them, but if anybody needs one, I believe they're sitting on the desk. Come in and get a coupon for a free hot dog.
One other thing about the Publix opening tomorrow that I found out today was that they are also Thursday. They're also donating $5,000 worth of product to the Beach Baptist Market. So helping out the community the day that they open up. So that's cool.
We also, I'm also getting a little bit closer with open line of communication with CVS. It's been difficult, but Ron Book's office is helping me with that, bridging that gap as well as some of the South End residents are very active in sending emails to corporate office. So we're trying to get them with all fronts to see exactly what the plans are and when they plan on opening that on the South End, because we need a pharmacy, and people don't want to switch to Walgreens off the island, but they will if they have to. So hopefully, if CVS is listening, we're trying to reach out. We're trying to get some information that we can spread through our site and obviously through Beach Talk Radio, so that we can keep people in the loop.
So the Beach Baptist proposal will be shown to everybody on Thursday between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Pastor Sean and the developers are going to be under the building, and they have room for 100 people. I imagine there's going to be 100 people there. And at least on our page, it just didn't seem like the community was going for it, and that The other thing is that Pastor Sean is writing a column for us that will be in the newsletter tomorrow. He thinks there were some other things that perhaps could have been included in the story that he's going to include. And I said, certainly, we'll add that. So, I mean, what was your take on what you've seen so far from what they put on the table?
Well, it's I guess the easiest way to say it is we have codes. We have a land development code, and we've got a comp plan. Those state very specifically what you can and you can't do unless you go through the CPD process to ask for something more. I do not see anything in that plan that's going to allow them to move forward without going through a CPD process. So everyone has that right to do it. Whether or not it moves forward, that's why it goes through the LPA process and the council for final approval. So we'll see where it's at. I've obviously been monitoring. I've had a chance to speak with Sean and the people involved in that group that want to get something done. I understand exactly why they want to get it done, but we have to be sensitive too. That is in a residential area that an 8-story building or higher. How do they calculate without knowing all the numbers? Again, for me, it comes down to the calculations. How do the numbers work? How does the density and intensity work in that area? Besides the fact of what it's zoned. I mean, to me, it looks like it's going to have to be a rezoning just by the sheer picture of it. A rezoning as well as CPD process. So we'll see what those numbers are. Again, until we get some more distinctive information, we only have pictures to go off of. And a lot of people, and I, rightfully so, a lot of people, took caution about not being able to spell the name of the city you're trying to propose something incorrectly, or the town that you're trying to propose something.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Did the developer do that?
Yeah, in the bottom right-hand corner, people picked up on it and noticed they smelt Myers wrong. People already have a short fuse for being called Fort Myers, and then when you misspell the name, it's a minor thing, but it's people are paying attention, and anyone that's looking at developing on the island, you've got to be cognizant that people are watching everything you say, everything you do. They're watching, they're listening. They may not be vocal until they have to be, but they're paying close attention. Yeah. And I think that they're doing things the right way. That they're getting in front of the people and they're asking questions and they're trying to figure out what will work, what won't work. But all the things that they're trying to do it for is all the right reasons. I don't think anyone has said in any of the developments that we've seen so far that we're not open to the ideas. It's just a matter of how it's going to work within our comp plan and the land development code.
So can you explain the CPD process for anybody that doesn't know? If we're focusing on that property, they would have to come up with their own commercial plan development, which it's basically that's a long process to set something up like that.
Yeah, so essentially you're trying to create your own plan essentially. So every area has a zoning district and that dictates certain things. The way they're zoned now would not allow what the picture shows, at least. They would have to go a different direction, which again, without knowing the numbers, it's hard to say what they would have to rezone to be able to even come close to achieving what they're trying to do. So that's one step of it. Then you have your comp plan and land development code that dictate what you can do and what you can't do. To go above and beyond that, similar to Margaritaville, they had to go through a CPD, just like other places that have got not Moss Marine, but Tanzas. Their project was a CPD because they were asking for more than a land development code and comp plan allowed. And that's where you come into discussions. What is acceptable to the public and what isn't, and it's all through discussions and charrettes but essentially you're creating something outside of the box that is the land development code and the comp plan without trying to go too far into the weeds.
Got it. Okay. So Thursday they'll start the whole process with the community, and I mean, we were over there walking around Saturday just to kind of. Now you see a picture and you're thinking, oh wow, where are you going to put an 8-story building with a pool? Like those neighbors really are close. They're. I mean, it's not like they're miles away. They really are close.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that live in that area. One of our council members lives right across the street from it. So, what they're trying to do, they've obviously listened to important key facts, or not key facts, but key points that the community has talked about, and they're trying to implement that. So, I compliment them on trying to solve some of the issues that we've raised. But again, you got to deal with height and intensity and density when it comes to these things. So we'll see what comes out on the meeting, and I'm sure that they're going to get plenty of feedback, whether they want to hear it or not. And we'll see where it goes. It's really hard to comment one way or comment one way or another until you know the data, until you know the numbers. It's just a drawing, and With the Moss Marine one, that's changed, like I said, 3 times since the first 2 times since I saw it the first time. So it's always these reiterations based on feedback. So once we get to see what the final submission is going to be, then we can really start having a hard conversation about how it fits in or doesn't fit in, and what the plan of attack is or where they go from there.
And I think it's always a point too, whenever you see a picture. I mean, when we were looking at the Moss Marine thing, it was like, I just couldn't, having been there on the property, it is hard to envision something of that size and magnitude to fit. I mean, even when they did Margaritaville, from a regular person, if you're not an architect, it's like, how's that really going to look? How's that going to fit? And then they put it in and you're like, oh yeah, it fits in there. So it is hard from a picture to sort of wrap your mind around how it's all going to look and how it's all going to fit. So,
yeah, and it's all about, what do you want to change? Do you want to change the comp plan? Don't you want to change the comp plan? I think we've had conversations enough now that people understand that people are willing, or the majority of the 12 people between the LPA and the council want to keep the comp plan as far as floor area ratio where it is. There's no need to raise it to the 4 and 5 FAR that our consultant was potentially proposing. So that's one part of it. Now you got to deal with rooms, and you've got to deal with heights and other things that fall within that. So we're working through with staff on how we can present something, as well as the LPA. They're giving them directions to come forth with some suggestions. So I have no doubt Sarah and Jason will come forth with some ideas, let the LPA make a recommendation, and then send it to council for more deliberation and see where we end up. But I have a feeling that's going to come sooner than later.
Yeah, and just one final note on that: there was no insurance on the church, so it wasn't like they're waiting for an insurance check or something. I think what Pastor Sean is trying to do is figure out a way to get a church rebuilt and add community workforce housing, which will not be government run if it ever goes through. I mean, it will be run by the church. So I know in some of the comments, people were saying that they would have to follow the government rules. Well, I don't think they would have to follow the government rules if they're running the community housing through the church. I don't know all the details about that, but that's kind of the way he explained it to me. If it does happen, I mean, who knows? So far off right now.
Yeah. Again, how does workforce housing work? We just started talking about it. It's obviously a hot button. What is it feasible on the island? I mean, that's a question that nobody really wants to address, but is it really feasible on the island? The expense for buying a piece of property. And my guess is that's part of the reason why the developer is adding that in there. It's got to be something that helps the church as well as the community. So, right now it's just speculation. It's just talk. And, you put something out there and see what the response is, and then you make adjustments. And it comes down to a point of for both sides. Is it acceptable within the comp plan and land development code? And is it acceptable for the bottom dollar for the developer that wants to do it? So those are the two issues that will come eventually to a crossroads, and we'll see where it ends up.
So when I was over there on Saturday, I was talking to a gentleman who owns a piece of property right next to the church. He's living in a RV now. His house is gone. A lot of houses are gone on that street there. And he was explaining to me that he feels like he's shown the town enough proof that he had a 3-unit, I don't know,
home or
3-unit home, or maybe it was a vacation rental, to build back to have what he had before. And I know there's a lot of this going on where you have to go back to 1985 or something and prove at that year that your structure existed or something. But he just felt like he had enough proof, but the town wasn't buying the proof. I don't know the full story. I'm just telling you what he told me.
Yeah,
what is going on? Go ahead.
So we had a conversation about that, and we gave direction to staff. You have to have 2 forms in our code that shows 5 or 6 different things that you can use. One of them being the documentation from the LIPA site. Another one could be an affidavit. So there's several different things. And sorry, I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but we gave direction to staff that because it's within our code and it was in place before the storm, if you could present 2 of those details showing that you had a pre-existing, say, triplex before the storm, that you can build it back. Now that enters into other things. Now you're getting into zoning, and you're getting into Megan just got here, so he's saying hi. I probably should have left him in the camper, but
we can't even hear it.
It's a weird sound. It's not like it's a dog, but it's just like an
dog eating the cat. Yeah, dog eating the cat.
He sounds so tough until you walk in, and he's like, "The couch is over here, the fridge is over there.
Yeah.
Make what you want."
Yeah, exactly. Can I help you carry it out to the car? I'm here. You know, so he's kind of one of those guys. But so, you know, then you have other things like pre-disaster build back. You can do, we were just talking about that today, actually. Sarah and I were talking about it. You know, if you had a triplex and you can show that it was a triplex, you can build it back, but it has to be at the same size that you had before. So if it was a 300 square foot unit in your triplex, you could build it back as a 300 square foot unit. But obviously nobody wants to build back, or not everybody wants to build back at the same size. They want to go bigger. And that's where you run into then the dwelling units per acre and all the other things that come into it. So there's a lot of different things into it. But as far as what you were speaking to directly, Ed, that has been talked about, that has been decided on, direction has been given. If you can show 2 of the 5 or 6 things within our code that shows that it was existing before the storm, then you can move forward with building, assuming you meet all the other requirements.
Yeah, so he was saying that the county gave him the proof, like the county was saying to him, I'm giving you the proof. This is the proof that it was what it was, but it's just not, he's saying it's not floating with the town. It almost seems like I don't know what the real story is there, or how it could be.
So
well,
where
the
did people
issue that
go
we
to
were
get that
having before,
information?
yeah, the issue we were having before we gave that direction was people are saying, look, I had a duplex or I had a triplex, right, and it was in a residential multifamily area. I'm just using this as an example that I could show you through LIPA that I was being taxed on, and it showed that there was 3 units, for instance, and now you're telling me I can't do it. So staff was looking at direction as to what will we accept within our code to allow them to build back. Now, again, that we cross that bridge, and it's out there for everybody to hear and see and go look. If you can provide 2 of those 5 or 6 things, then you can say, yes, it was there. Now that gets you to the next step. You know, where you are. Obviously, you can't build back below base flood elevation. I mean, everybody knows that by now. So how do you make that work? Can you build it back, go up higher? But again, it comes into, it's the same size unit that you had before. If you had 400 square feet, you can't go to 1,200 square feet. Even, you know, there's other rules that fall into place. But I believe we crossed that road and crossed that hurdle of what is required to show the proof that you had it pre-1985.
So if somebody had 3 units and one of them was on, below
this is the
base flood elevation.
Yeah.
So say the whole 3, the 2 top units and the one on the bottom equals 1,200, just, so they can just do 1,200 again, but it's got to be up. They can't start counting until that base flood elevation, right? And then they got to go up.
Yes and no. The total in your scenario is 1,200 square feet. But if each unit was 600 square feet, each unit has to be 600 square feet. You can't do 800 square feet.
Well, if each unit was 4 and it was 1,200, you're saying it's got to be 4, same exact unit size.
Well, now unless you meet the other requirements, so you could have 2 1,200 square foot units, but you're going up in the air and you're within the height restrictions and things like that. That's where that part comes in. I know it's
I think that's the thing. Then they're getting in the height It's like I see their point. I'm losing the bottom because you can't go there, but I can't go up too high. And how do you fit?
Well, that's where you're running into where they're running into issues, or at least the people that I've spoken to, is the size of the lot. Your lot is so small. When you do the calculations, you run into that dwelling units per acre issue. That's where it comes into pre-disaster build back. So let's say your lot is a certain size, and based on that dimension, to build back brand new, the size that you want, in your scenario, you had 1,200 square feet. Now you want to do 2 units at 1,200 square feet. Based on those calculations, you can't do that because of the zoning requirements. But under pre-disaster build back, you could have those 2 units, but they just have to be at the same size that you had before. Does that make sense?
So if we're talking about 3, not 1,200 each, we're talking about 400, 400, and 400 to make the full unit 1,200. You can't build until you get to a certain level. Let's say in that neighborhood, it's going to be a certain level you have to start at. Then they get into the height requirements that they can't go over. So really, they can't really build back. That's a misunderstanding when you're telling people they can build back. They can't.
Well, that's not true. I mean, if your lot width and length support a 400 square foot units on one level, or even 2 levels, why couldn't you build it back? Now you you got stairs, obviously, you're going to have to take up to that level, or put an elevator or whatever. So it's not that you can't do it. There's other things that play into side setbacks, front and rear setbacks. There's other things that play into the size of the lot. But through pre-disaster build back, you can build them back, but you may not get exactly what you want to build them back. You only get what you had before. And we know a lot of these triplexes and quads and even duplexes were not very large units. And the lots that they're on are not massive lots. So to build back what you had, sure, you can do that if you meet the side setbacks and things like that. Or again, you can go through the process to ask for forgiveness on that. But there's paths to do it. The biggest hurdle we had was showing the proof that it existed before the certain date. And I think we eliminated that hurdle. Now we understand that that's going to potentially add more density, if you will, but it's going to memorialize the people that were there now after the storm. So that was the whole point, is give people the opportunity that can show. I mean, if you're paying taxes on it, to me, it was, if you're paying taxes on it and it shows on the LIPA tax roll that it's a triplex or a duplex, why should we not accept that, especially in our code when it tells us that we can do that? So we got past that hurdle, like I said, 1,000 times now, and we're moving forward with that part of it. But now you have other issues that you have to look at depending on how big you want to go, and side setbacks and all the other things that fall within the zoning requirements.
All right, Todd, we're going to get to your question, but I just had one more last one on this one. So if they let's say a person originally had 2 floors, a bottom floor and a second floor, making up 3 units that were 400 square feet. I don't know if the math isn't perfect, but they have to go up if they want the same exact thing. They want to have the second floor was what the first floor used to be, and the third floor is what the second floor used to be. If they build up 3 stories, it can't be higher than the height restrictions in that community. But doesn't it also affect the side? Now, don't you lose on the side setbacks or something, or you got to give something back because you're going higher?
Well, you have your side setback measurement, and if you have to put stairs, and that's the issue that I was talking about. So if you're going to have 3 stories or 2 stories high and the second unit upstairs, you have to have a way to get to it, whether it's an elevator or stairs on the outside, whatever it is. Well, that counts as part of your building. So if you have to have a 3-foot wide stair or 4-foot wide stair, then you've got other things like ADA compliance you got to put in. So that's where on some of these 50-foot lots, they're struggling with the side setback, as well as having to put the egress in to get up to that second story. So those are the things that you have to work through.
All right, let's put Todd's
a lot of questions.
Todd's question up on the screen, because I think that you guys are trying to address this. Why are some parts of permitting outsourced? No F2F contact. I don't know what that means. Only email provided.
I think that means I know some people I'm guessing that means face-to-face contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can have face-to-face contact with anyone in the permitting department that you want. You just have to simply go in and ask to speak with them. Now, the outsourcing of some of it, the flood is being outsourced. That's the stuff I've talked about several times. We're working on bringing that in-house. Our ultimate goal is to have, from start to finish, everything be reviewed in-house. But it takes time to bring this stuff has been outsourced since before Andy and before Keith and before Chris were here. So to bring that in-house, it takes time. We've given direction that that's what we want. Staff understands it. Andy understands it. But it takes time. You gotta procure these people, and you have to find them. I mean, they don't just fall out of the trees. So we're working on bringing that stuff in-house so that we don't have to outsource it. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
All right. John wants to know about the pool.
What about the popool?
He wants to know if
it's on our
RFP go on.
Nah, I don't believe the RFP for the pool has gone out yet. The RFP, I think, for Bayside Park goes out on the 1st, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere in there. But I don't believe.
Did you say Bayside Park? Did Dan just say something about Bayside Park? Wait, let me write that down. June 1st, you said?
Well, that's been the goal. Yeah.
Nice.
So we're gonna
wait. Hold on that. Well, we're still on the pool. Is there any update on Bay Oaks? Has that all got straightened out? The plans? I know it's only been a week. Or are we still on target to have that open by school year?
Well, that's the plan. Yeah, to have it not necessarily by the opening date of school year, but we have it's in our ILA to have it open and ready before the end of the year. So that's what we're shooting for. I believe I didn't get a chance to talk to Jason today, but I believe they're really close. If not, have all the documentation they need for the remainder of the fire inspection to move forward to do that permit.
The end of the calendar year.
Calendar year.
Okay.
In the first section of the, if you will, the school. I know the school board's working to try to get the building built back for the kids.
Yep.
The goal is obviously to try to have it done by the first of the school year, or by the beginning of the first day of school. That's certainly their goal. I know in speaking with the superintendent, that's certainly our goal with Bay Oaks. And it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that I can't tell you for sure that, yes, it's going to be done that day, but we definitely will have it done before the end of the year.
All right, Renee's question: how long should people expect to wait for permit approvals? And I know that's kind of a generic question. There's so
every permit is completely different.
Yep.
Some permits happen very quickly. It just depends on what you have. I mean, we keep saying the same thing over and over again. Making sure your permit application is fully complete before you send it in is obviously going to be the fastest way to get it done. Depending on if you're building a new house and it's got to go for flood review and commercial is another, you're dealing with not just us, but the fire district as well. So it's hard to say, put an exact date on how long it takes, but I know that Steve and his staff have been working with that 2 week on residential type permits to try to have them turned around within 2 weeks. We obviously, as everyone know, took a step back after the deadline for having that assistance from the state that was covered by FEMA. And we lost some people, but we're working on staffing them back up. We, again, at a previous meeting, gave Steve the okay and staff the okay to start staffing that up. And I know I'm in there every day and I see new hires starting. So the progress is going forward. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Before you get to the question, dear, I'm giving everyone a play-by-play update. NBC Nightly News is now leaving Baymar, and it sounds like they're heading to the Gateway Marina.
Getaway.
That's where you heard there were going to be two, right, Dan? The Gateway Marina.
Getaway.
The Getaway or Gateway?
Getaway.
Getaway. Is it Getaway? Now you got me confused. It's just over the
Gateway on my Laura. Is it Getaway or Gateway? Anyway, that's where I heard.
That was yeah. I mean, their crew has been kind of all over the island all day shooting video and doing things like that. So I know that they've been moving around. I've heard that they may be there, and they obviously don't want everybody to know where they're at for a reason. So
sure.
So thanks, dear.
Yeah, uncover them.
And I see Renee's comment there. So 6 months. And Renee, feel free to send me an email with your permit number. I'll certainly look into it. I can't do everybody's permit, but if you feel that your permit is being held up for any other, that the town is holding it up for some reason, please send it to me. I will be more than happy to look into it. And if you can't be here to talk to staff, I'll do it on your behalf. I mean, I certainly want to help as much as I can. I just, without knowing every specific detail for every permit, it's kind of hard to tell you what's holding it up, why it hasn't moved forward. Is it something very simple that either a contractor isn't doing and they're telling the homeowner?
Dan, I'm so glad you brought that up, because last week I got an email from somebody frustrated about a permit, and I asked Albert and Holly, who they love going down those rabbit holes with the permits to look things up, and a lot of the times it's the contractor, unfortunately, that doesn't follow through for the resident, and the resident is thinking there's a permit issue, and it's the contractor that hasn't gone back with the details that the town is looking for, or just completely leaves the resident hanging. And so, some of these folks have had never to deal with something like this, and now they're trying to rely on a contractor that's screwing them.
And I'm certainly not going to blame anybody, but I will tell you, most of the cases that I've been looked into have been one of two things: either the information, whether it's windows or doors or something, just using those as an example, there has been no detail submitted with it other than we're replacing the doors or windows. Not what kind of windows, are they Home Depot windows? What are you replacing with? And then they send back that response, and that never gets to the homeowner. I've also had, believe it or not, I've actually had one person who I see all the time blowing us up about permits are taking forever. I reached out to that person. I said, what is your permit number? I want to look into this for you. You've obviously been very vocal about it. You know what the response was? Well, I don't have a permit. Well, you're complaining about it's holding something up, but you don't even have a permit. So it's those kind of things. And I'm not saying our permitting process is perfect. We know that there's flaws, and we know we're trying to get through it. But if you don't even have a permit and you're blowing us up on social media and everything, and you don't have a permit, why? What's the point? Yeah. So, but if you have a permit and you feel that it's being held up by the town, please let me know. I will certainly look into it myself. And I'll give
the
you
other thing is, if you have a permit that isn't going as fast as you think, you could always call your contractor and ask them what's going on too, and put some pressure on them to figure out what's going on, because
that was some of the issues a couple months ago. I haven't heard of that for a while, but it was they failed their inspection or something, and they never followed back up with it. And the contractor was telling the homeowner, I had a guy come into the office and was screaming in my face that we're holding up his permit. Sat him down, we looked at his permit, and he could very clearly see that they never resubmitted to have it inspected again.
Right.
And so I could tell you, when he was leaving, his anger was on the phone talking to his contractor, and he was no longer mad at the town. So there's all kinds. I'm not saying that the town is perfect and we're not making mistakes and things aren't sliding through the cracks. I mean, it happens. It's part of the process. But unless we know specifically what the issue is, we can't help you resolve it.
Okay.
So here's a question. What is the status of the $3,000 refunds for the Laguna Shores dredging project?
I asked that. I want to reply exactly how I got the reply from the town manager, so I'm not misquoting anything. Give me just a second here.
And just for some history, while Dan's looking that up, there's a it's not an interlocal, but it's an agreement between the residents of Laguna Shores and the town that they split the cost to dredge that area, and it's not cheap. But every few years, you guys have some kind of deal where the town pays 50% and the residents kick in 50%, and it looks like the breakdown is $3,000 per resident to pay for that. And then, of course, the storm hit and everything went out the window.
So, we've got a new director, Stephen Matuska, I think is how you pronounce his last name, who is looking into this. And I messaged to Andy where we're at on that. And his reply was, our utility manager says we have refunded the one homeowner on Laguna Shores. He has discovered we have approximately 112 customers who have not received a $3,000 refund. We are making sure they did not receive a credit to their utility account. If they did, we will make sure they get a refund check. The refund should be in the form of a check, not a credit to the utility account. We are auditing to make sure that we find the total number of customers affected so we can properly issue the refund checks.
Okay, well, that was a great question, because that's new news there that we hadn't heard yet for those folks out there.
Yeah, and Steve started obviously after the storm and had no knowledge of what that was before. He knows about it now. I guarantee you, he just replied to me in an email that he's now well aware of it and it's in his radar. So hopefully we can get that addressed quickly.
Now so it needed to be dredged, but now is it going to be part of something that the state does, because everything is being dredged down there now, or do they need to give you the money again in the future because you're going to do it anyway?
Well, the issue is with FEMA, if you didn't have a plan in place, which the town did not, with dredging, they're not going to reimburse you for something you didn't do before, is the easiest way to say it. So I believe it was our last MMP meeting, we discussed about we directed staff into looking into what can we do? How does a town get involved in this to be able to dredge these canals? Is it going to be an assessed thing for property owners? We have to look at how other places do it, but unfortunately we did not have a plan in place for dredging these canals. Mm-hmm. So we're not essentially going to get anything from FEMA, is what I've been told.
Okay, so I guess I was under the impression that the state was going to dredge just because of the storm, like all the canals. Is that wrong?
What's that? I'm sorry, replace it.
Sorry, I was under the impression, I don't know, from months ago, I thought I heard something where all of the canals were going to be...
FWC was going to...
Yeah, or FWC, the state was going to dredge all the canals because of the storm and.
Well, no, I think what Director Guthrie said way back at the beginning, I think in late November when he was here, when we had that town hall, is that the town had applied for assistance, not that we've been granted assistance. So we're still going through looking for grants. We're looking for every possible dollar. My biggest fear through this whole thing is what opportunities are we missing? I don't want to miss a single opportunity for any kind of funding for anything. And I probably beat on that drum a little too much with staff and they get tired of hearing me say it. But, my biggest fear is that we're going to miss an opportunity that was there that we could have gotten, and I don't want to miss that. So this is part of the stuff that we're looking at, and staff is trying to find grants for to help out as best we can, because we're all going through it. Everybody that lives in a canal is dealing with it.
Yeah, so I guess there's a difference between cleaning a canal where there's cars and debris and stuff like that and dredging a canal, which is, I guess, a whole different thing.
Yeah.
The different machinery or whatever. So
yeah, Austin's been out there and he's monitoring the inlets to these canals and seeing, trying to take depths and see what canals are worse than others. And obviously Laguna Shores has always been one. the town has participated with them in the past and help funding that. It's kind of a 50-50 split to help them dredge that. So is that something that the town wants to do island wide? Is that something that the people that live in the canal want to do at all? There's still a lot of discussions that have to be had on who's going to pay for it and how it's going to get paid for.
Lights update.
Estero Boulevard.
Yeah, that was one of the things I missed at the beginning. So I talked with Charlotte. They are going to be receiving on Wednesday the first 62 lights, and they expect to have those up by Friday. So 62 of the 100 and whatever it is, 11 or 131 lights should be up by Friday, is what I was told. Yeah.
All right. And I'm sure you reminded Charlotte that they're
going to start on the south end and move north.
I'm sure you reminded Charlotte that they promised that everything would be done by June 1st.
Well, I don't think she needs to be reminded.
Yeah. Did we want to cut out a little early because of the news, but did you get everything in that you wanted to share? Any other good news or any other news before we blast out of here?
Well, there's a few other things in the fire, but until I know for sure, I really don't want to say anything about it. But I think we got a lot of good stuff covered, and looking forward to Publix opening on Thursday. So I'm sure I'll see everyone there at some point. And other than that, let's go see what Lester has to say.
Hey, Dan, thanks a lot for your time. We'll see you in a week, if not before that.
You got it.
All right. And before we blast out of here, folks, we do want to let everybody know that the show tonight is sponsored in part by the Landau Law Group. Listen, if your insurance company has not paid you out, they are not operating in good faith. If they're giving you the runaround, you need to give the Landau Law Group a call, 866-703-4878. Matt, Eric, and Paul over at the Landau Law Group have been helping folks with hurricane claims in the community and in communities throughout Florida for over 30 years.
I mean, and really, there's no
downside.
reason not to do it, just to have them take a look-see.
866-703-4878. 866-703-4878. And finally, Power Block Builders. They've built over 500 structural shells for tract home builders, and they're also a custom hole builder in Cape Coral. Elevated concrete columns, tiled throughout the floor in the showers, LED recessed lighting, metal roofs, granite countertops. They've got it all. And we want you to give Power Block Builders a call or check them out online, powerblockbuilders.com. And we appreciate them sponsoring the show. Not only do they build new homes as a certified building contractor, but they are also certified roofing contractors in the state of Florida. Thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you again to Rebecca for her nice donation.
Thanks to the folks.
Corrine, not Rebecca.
Thanks to the folks who came out on my Sunday ride to say hello from Coquina, and the gentleman from Canada who stopped me with his dog Stella to do an interview. And again, we apologize. We have to work on the audio, but we appreciate it.
I actually have that. Right there are lavalier plug-in mics to the phone that we have to test out to see if they work first. But even when I was interviewing Greg Skasny on Saturday, because he lives in that neighborhood where the church is, you got to get close. You got to get him in the face.
And his phone so close to his face, and I didn't tell him in advance, and he kept first, and I kept advancing, and he was back.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the news tonight, and the newsletter will be out tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.